NET-200 Introduction to Networking 9/9/16. It's a Friday and this is day 4. Alright, a couple key things. Inside the classroom we have PCs connected to a switch, and this line here we talk about, later on we talk a little bit about security, and this edge going into the network. Out here we have end devices accessing our network. Now in the lab we have a router here, which is an access router for us. We can telnet to that router using this particular number and this password, Cisco. We can telnet to that router. Once we connect that router, we have 32 options for devices that we can connect to. Then we configured that so you could type device and then some number, and you can be connected to that device. And it's just like connecting to the console of the device. You're telnetting in here, but you're consoling into your device. So that works really well from the classroom, from any of these PCs in the classroom. Now, you can do the same thing from Work Server 1 or in the classroom if you were to use Work Server 2. Either one, you can log into those remotely, so you could come through the internet to a work server. Once you're in the work server, then you can telnet to this device and then access your equipment. Alright, so then we talked about some other topics here. We talked about security today, and if you look at for example, here we show an access point, and here we show a smartphone, the smartphone connecting to the access point. Smartphone could be anywhere on campus. Just, we talked about bring your own device and what issues that brings. And we also talked about this human user interface and user experience. That's so important. So we want to make this easy out here, but yet we want to draw a line here to where, how do we protect our intermediate devices internally. So we talked a little bit more about the Wi-Fi. We talked about the Wi-Fi in the dorms, access points that connect into a switch, multi-layer switch. Has to go through a firewall to get out. And the firewall stops items from getting into this internal network. This router here acts as our firewall. Now, if you're going to connect in to one of these switches from the outside, because we're doing NAT, network address translation, right here, you're going to have to use an outside address. And we covered those before, 207.165.226.185 for the internal server, 184 for the Linux 1 server that's sitting in my office. Alright, 4 slides, so I've got another one to go. Out here we have that public IP. We translate our private addresses. It's just like an edge here. They get translated when they get out here to these public addresses that allow them to move through the internet. Okay. So we talked a little more about security. A small company, router, they could have 2 connections, the ISP, to build in redundancy. For security, they could have a small firewall or large firewall, whatever, and then on their computers they can have antivirus software. We talked about what internet service providers are already. Here we just show another connection to into the cloud. Alright. Some of the issues. Congestion on a network. You just get lots of traffic. Using up the bandwidth. Bits per second. You think about a pipe and you're running all these bits through the pipe. The amount we send is measured in bytes. So, for an example, you might have a 2 gigabyte data plan, which means you can only send this 2 gigs of data before they start charging you extra. When we measure bandwidth, it's how many bits per second. For example, an example of Mediacom, you might have 15 million bits per second down, from the internet to your home computer. It's usually less up on private homes, but that means that's how much per second it'll allow you to bring down. But it has no apparent cap on how much you bring in, whereas a lot of data plans on phones are measured by how much, and they really don't tell you what kind of bandwidth they're going to give you, because it could vary. Okay. We already talked about this information over here previously. Now we go to the last slide. We did a little bit of work at the command prompt. On a PC, this will give you lots of information about the connection coming from the PC going out. IP config /all. We talked about security also today. We're mostly concerned about securing data. When do we talk about? We talked about the state that data's in. Data's either sitting somewhere stored, data's it's in transit, that's moving between one device and another, or data is being processed. It's actually in memory and moving between the processor and memory. It's being processed. When it's in those states, we want to be concerned about confidentiality, who can see what. Okay? Integrity is the integrity of the data. Is the data not changed or it hasn't been manipulated? The data is accurate. Okay? And then we also need to make the data available. If you didn't have to make the data available, you could do a pretty good job of securing it. But certain people have to be able to see certain types of data. So all of these relate back to security. We have lots of methods to secure, but this is always a good way to think back. Who can see it? Is it accurate? And who do we have to make it available for? Over here, we just talked about some other terms. what a podcast is, what a weblog is, what a wiki is. Podcasts, those audio podcasts, thousands out there now on about every topic you can think of. A weblog is referred to often as a blog, okay, where somebody types information and other people can view it. A wiki, typically lots of people can contribute. Okay, so we gather the information, we contribute, lots of people in terms of a wiki. And that's it for this week.